I've always secretly wanted to restore something. Now, I'm not a professional, but I'm actually proud of this one. Yes, we could have done things a bit differently, but since I don't plan to sell it, I think it's good enough to display. So I bought this Stanley Handyman wood plane at a garage sale for $5. It was pretty dirty, but it was complete. I don't know what year it's from, but it's in pretty great shape. I want to thank my buddy Rick for doing most of the work and teaching me a few things along the way. He's a mobile bicycle mechanic, but is great with tools and secretly loves restoration projects. So the first thing we did was spray MO94 on all the bolts and anything with metal-to-metal contact just to make the disassembly process smoother. There was a lot of gunk and debris on the plane, so most of the restoration process was going to be cleaning it all off. Rick kept emphasizing positive engagement when he was removing the bolts. This was his way of making sure the screwdriver didn't slip as he applied a lot of pressure to remove the bolts. I wish I could have removed the lateral adjustment lever as well, but it was riveted on and could not easily be removed. Once all the parts were separated, we dipped them in the ultrasonic cleaner for 15 minutes with a solution of water, dish soap, and simple green. While the parts were in the ultrasonic cleaner, I ran to the hardware store, bought some spray paint, rust remover, and some wood stain. Once the 15 minutes were up, we removed the parts from the cleaner and you could instantly see the difference. Most of the paint was still on there, but it didn't really matter since we were going to be repainting it anyway. We then put all the parts in a bucket, filled it with water, rinsed off the solution, and brushed them all down before the next ultrasonic bath. Most of the debris was dirt and rust, but the solution was mostly for grease, so we could have used more soap for a better result. A few of the parts were good to go as is and did not need another dip in the solution. Parts that were not clean enough, such as the body, the frog, the blade, the chip breaker, and the lever cap, were put back in the sonic cleaner for another 15 minutes. It was pretty cool to see the red and blue paint still on the body and the frog, but we were going to remove the paint anyway. We used aircraft paint remover, but it didn't do too well, so we decided to just leave the paint on these parts and sand down the wood tote and knob. Rick came up with some pretty cool ways to sand down the knob since doing it by hand was taking a good while. Whatever paint was originally used on the knob and the handle was pretty darn good, as it took up quite some time to remove it all. The body, frog, blade, chip breaker, lever cap, knobs, and screws did have quite a bit of rust, so we lathered some Loctite naval jelly rust dissolver on them and let them sit for about 10 minutes. We then washed it off and repeated this step one more time. Once all the parts were removed from the sonic cleaner or rinsed off from the rust dissolver, we let them dry and prepped them for painting. I was pretty satisfied with how all the rust was dissolved from these pieces here, especially the main body. I tried to match the color as best as I could, and yes, I know the exterior faces were not originally blue, but I wanted to paint them anyway as I don't think I will sell or actually use it anytime soon. I applied 3 coats of paint to each piece, allowing 1 hour of drying in between. While these pieces were drying, Rick was cleaning and polishing the bolts, knobs, the blade, and the chip breaker. He also sharpened the blade, but I didn't catch that part on camera. I used a semi-transparent stain for the tote and the front knob as I was going for a different look than the original blue paint. Once all the parts were clean, painted, and stained, it was time for reassembly. Since Rick was the one who took it apart, he might as well put it back together. Yes, there are a few things we could have done differently, but I think it came out great and it will look very nice wherever I decide to display it. Toodaloo.